What's up, everybody? This is Ted and Papo, the Wrestling Exchange. My name is Ted. I'm joined with my partner in crime.
Papo in the house.
Everybody who's watching, you're most likely watching on YouTube because that's probably, well, that's the only place you can watch it right now. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. And if you don't like us anyway. So right off the bat, I want to get into these releases. Did you see these releases earlier this week?
With the Brodus Clay, Evan Bourne, Curtis Hawk, Yoshi Tatsu, Teddy Long, Camacho, Gender, Marshall, Merrill, was that Akasa, Drew McIntyre, and referee Mark Harris and JTG.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this. Is there anybody on this list that you're upset that they let go? Obviously, Teddy Long. No tag teams, playa.
Well, Brodus Clay, I love Funkasaurus. He was entertaining. He went out there and danced. He had the women. That's my most upsetting moment about this release.
Really? Brodus Clay? Brodus is the one? Not Teddy Long?
Teddy Long, I mean, he had lack of luster, but again, Brodus Clay was a Funkasaurus. I mean, he had the crowd going wild. He's a definitely draw.
It's funny, out of all the people here, see, I don't, I'm going to disagree with you on Brodus because I don't think Brodus is worth any money, and that's not a personal thing. I don't see it, and my main reason why that is, it's not his moveset. He's not a talker, and a live mic really doesn't really pan out well. He should have someone with him to talk for him, but his ring gear is terrible. Like there's been a lot of big guys over the years that they were able to cover up the fact that they were fat guys, and I'm not saying Brodus is fat, but his ring gear makes him look like this big fat guy, and I want to see him as like a monster, not as big fat guy number one.
And that's understandable. But when he did come out, he had that vicious tenacity that drove the people wild. I mean, he was out there to fight, and then they went ahead and they clowned him up with the dance, and the dance did get the crowd going.
I agree with you that the dance got the crowd going. It's just, I don't know. Like, right before this release, they brought him over to NXT for a few shows. And it's just like one of those gimmick things where at first you're like, oh, okay, the Funkasaurus. But then he's teaming with, who was he teaming first? Albert? Yeah, he was Albert first, and then he teamed with R-Truth. And then, like, they gave his music and gimmick away to Xavier Woods for no reason. And then he was like, he took my music and he took my fuckadactyls, and then, like, they never feuded. And I don't know. I don't feel Brodus Clay. Unless he's doing the big silent monster type, I just don't get it. Evan Bourne, yeah. Evan Bourne's really good, but I'm not really torn up about that. Your thoughts?
Evan Bourne, I mean, he had some mediocre in-ring skills. So I'm not really too upset about his release. Send him over to TNA, good to go.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I like him, but he's one of those guys like Kofi that's like really good in the ring, but I don't care to get invested. Like there's nothing going on there. What do you think about Kurt Hawkins?
Kurt Hawkins, not too much. I mean, one of those ones that you go ahead, ship him out to TNA so he could refine his skills.
Do you think he'll have a job coming back from TNA?
Well, insider news on TNA, Matt Hardy actually just signed with them again.
Really?
And
well, that's cool.
Yes.
I guess. Is he still doing the Willow thing?
I mean, he's got. Well, Jeff right now is totally doing this whole Enigma character. I mean, he comes out with like super Sting face paint on with the umbrella. I mean, as of right now, for me, it looks like that character is completely. I mean, he doesn't know what to do. Now with Matt coming into TNA, they may go ahead and bring him into a tag team Stardust again. But other than that, I mean, I really don't see Jeff doing too much.
And that's the funny thing too, right? Because everybody loves Jeff. Jeff's the standout in that team. Everybody loves the hell out of Jeff, and I like Jeff too. But over the years, I might be in the minority here, but I kind of like Matt better than I like Jeff.
Well, Matt, I mean, he was the muscle, basically. Jeff was just the shine to the stardom of the Hardy brothers. Matt was the backbone, and then Jeff was the face.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so before we get too far dragged away, we got a few more left. We got Yoshi Tatsu. I don't know about you. I never really saw enough Yoshi Tatsu. Um, it's funny because they chant his name all the time in NXT, and now it's even more funny because they're probably. Oh, you know what? No, I do know something about Yoshi. I want to say about 6 months or so, wanted to move to a place in Texas where it's like a Japanese American or just a Japanese community. And he was like, I'll fly in and out to Florida all the time, but like, can I live in Texas? And the WWE was like, no, you have to live in Florida. And then we didn't see him much after that. I mean, any particular thoughts on Yoshi Tatsu? And I know we mentioned Teddy Long a few minutes ago. Any thoughts about that?
Okay. Well, Yoshitatsu, I mean, he had some excellent in-ring skills, but as for on the mic, I really couldn't back him up. But he had excellent in-ring skills, and I, I would say if he could just put on just a little bit more bulk, then he can probably run at a mid-card level, and even making a run for the U.S. Championship belt. But other than that, I mean, small dude, just bulk up, good to go.
Right on, right on. The next few, well, not the next few, but we there's a couple here that kind of upset me a little bit. Camacho. I never really cared for Camacho on his own, although I did like Camacho and Hunico. I thought the bike thing was just cool. I know it's kind of dumb or whatever, but I dug it. I like them as a team, and then now Hunico is being Sin Cara, and it's just kind of funny because they let Camacho go, and Camacho actually in recent times in NXT is actually looking pretty good, and I was very sad to see him go. Your thoughts?
Well, Camacho, I mean, eh, he was pretty good with the tag team, but no, again, another wrestler with no mic skills at all.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So what do you think about two-thirds of? I know you don't like them. So what do you think about two-thirds of 3MB on the out?
3MB, that's all you right there. I could care less about 3MB. I could care less about 3MB. This should be called Three Jabronis.
Well, you know what? It's funny too because they're totally like the new Job Squad, and it's sad. I mean, I slowly started to like Jinder Mahal more recently, but I didn't care for him initially. Sad to see him go, but maybe this means something in the future for Heath Slater because he is really, really good. I mean, when they brought in guys like Sid Vicious and Vader, and there was just a bunch of guys that they brought in, legends, if you will, um, and he was bumping all over the place. He was having great fucking matches. I mean, uh, not for nothing, but yeah, maybe that leads to more with him. Oksana, I don't care about. Do you have anything to say about Oksana?
Well, Oksana, she's a face, gorgeous woman, but her in-ring skills were lackluster. But that leaves room for more divas to go ahead and step up because they really didn't utilize her like the way they should. But again, her in-ring skills were horrible.
Yeah, really, really bad. Especially when you consider most of the divas they have right now can really go. Which leaves us with referee Mac Harris, who I have no idea who that is. That's generic referee 42, and JTG. I was surprised that JTG was still under contract. Were you surprised? Because haven't heard shit out of this motherfucker since like 2008.
Yeah, I thought they let him go a long ass time ago. I mean, we haven't seen nothing from this guy from like forever. So I mean, I'd say I thought they let him go a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what was kind of surprising. I mean, I know he was on a segment, like a backstage segment, like a year or two, But still, even then, I was like, JJG's still here? No crime time? It's just him by himself? So yeah, those are the people that are released. What do you think about the talk of Daniel Bryan changing his move set because of the neck injury?
Well, I believe if he changes moveset, I mean, he has a lot in his arsenal to fall back on, other than dynamic moves. Like he has an awesome drop kick, and then the Shining Wizard, awesome. That knee to the face is always a crowd pleaser. But again, he's an all-around wrestler, and he has enough in his repertoire to fall back on if need be, such as this neck injury and surgery that he took care of. So he has a lot of wrestling set that he can go ahead and utilize. Submission, locks. So he's good to go. I mean, I believe that when he comes back, he's going to snap back perfectly.
Yeah, I hear a lot of talk about changing his moveset. I heard who was it? I think it was Bob Holly talk about it, and he kind of mentioned the missile dropkick. And it's a shame because these are all things that he can do really well. But if it's one of those things where it's going to possibly contribute to further injuries down the line, I think he should change it. It kind of got me thinking about Austin, right? Because when we go back in with Stone Cold, before he got dropped on his head, he kind of had a more, I mean, not super technical, but he kind of had a more technical style. He gets dropped on his head, and then he kind of fully physically evolves into just the fucking stomping mud holes and walking and dry.
Well, that's to be expected, especially when you're coming off surgery. They're going to be a little bit more cautious with their moves. I mean, me doing martial arts, if I got injured, I would baby that. Either if it was a knee injury, ankle injury, back injury, you're going to baby that specific spot and go ahead and compensate by using other moves so you can go ahead and execute.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely in agreement with you there. So let's kind of transition this into the title picture since we're talking about Daniel Bryan. I love the Money in the Bank match. It's been my favorite. It's bittersweet for me because I wish they would have stayed at WrestleMania, because to me that's one of the matches that I always got crazy excited for in Mania. Even an okay or bad Money in the Bank match can be salvaged with like one or two cool spots. So last year they had two Money in the Bank matches, one for the World Heavyweight title, one for the WWE title. Now it's the WWE World Heavyweight title. Obviously, we're going to have the main Money in the Bank match for the title or titles itself. But do you think it would be cool or workable, considering we could have a Money in the Bank because now the other two titles are unified? But put it this way. Do you think it would be good for storyline and just general surprise moments to still have a Money in the Bank briefcase match along with the Money in the Bank WWE World Heavyweight title match?
That's a good question. What I'm thinking is if they have two, since the belts are unified, that leaves two opportunities to get that unified title, which puts whoever holds that title more at risk.
Yeah, and I like, they've always used the Money in the Bank really well, and it, not always, because sometimes it was not so great, but for the most part, I think it's a very exciting thing. So yeah, I think you could do. I would love, and I don't know if they've ever done this. I don't think they have. Correct me if I'm wrong, and especially in the comments. I don't believe that they've ever had someone win the Money in the Bank and then cash in same night. Am I wrong on that? Do you remember anybody doing that?
Wow, I don't remember. That got me lost right now. Because I know that it has happened where the title has changed hands and somebody cashed in.
Right.
So I don't believe so.
I don't think it's happened, and I think it would be kick ass if it happened. I think it would be really cool, because then, if you figure right, so the guy whoever wins the Money in the Bank, he's tired, he's beat up, and whoever wins the championship or retains whatever would have. Well, no, in this case wins, would be beat up as well. It'd be kind of be interesting because usually the Money in the Bank cash-in is very opportunistic. A la Edge. Thank you very much for that. Uh, because that was the thing that they used with Edge. So it would be interesting to have two guys that are beat up and vulnerable already, but I don't know. Anyway, speculating. Moving on. Wanted to touch base on NXT for a second. For those of you who watch NXT, it's an hour long. It's half the time it's just as good, if not better, than SmackDown. Raw, it's hard for me to say because I haven't been able to watch all 3 hours every week. But just to highlight real quick, Bo Dallas, who you've seen in the past couple of weeks, and I think you saw him last year, 2 years ago, make an appearance at the Rumble. He was formerly an NXT guy, and then he basically got kicked out. And his Bo leave thing. By the way, are you a believer, Papo?
Still not a believer.
Shame. In time. Anyway, so when he left NXT originally, the crowd was chanting, Bo, leave. Bo, leave, right? So then he shows up under a luchador mask and gets signed to come back to NXT as Mr. NXT and a mask, and then basically has a match. And everybody knows it's him, and it's just, it was all in good fun. Really should check it out. It's a good match, and it was just funny because his mask comes off during the match, and then the people start doing the Bo leave chants, and then he's kicking and screaming out the building, and he's like, this is illegal, they're kidnapping me, and then he accuses security of touching his bum, and he'll call the real police. It's a lot of fun. If you guys want to, check it out on the network. But that's it for me for NXT. We're going on into SmackDown. Question. Do you like the titles hanging above the ring?
Yes, I do. I mean, everybody that gets down to the ring, they're looking up at it, wanting to go ahead and actually touch those belts, hold those belts, and just run with that title. So it adds a little flair to the matches, making the matches more dynamic and having them push a little bit harder so they can get noticed, so they can actually get that shot.
Do you think it's, in my opinion, right, I like it. I like anything in the ring that kind of adds to that, but it kind of is better than its retarded half-brother, which is the WrestleMania sign, which everybody gets in the ring and does the obligatory WrestleMania sign point. So to have the belts in there, it's kind of like they're playing on the same thing, but it's more enjoyable because it's there, it's tangible, you know, and especially with the two belts. Yeah, I like it. So we had a qualifying match, Dean Ambrose with Bray Wyatt. We had Bad News Barrett, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns speared Slater like he broke him in half. There was a couple other matches, the Usos versus the Wyatts. We had Bo Dallas and R-Truth. Cesaro and Paul Heyman. I hope they bring this to Raw. They did this thing where Cesaro's not speaking in English and Heyman's translating. I think he was speaking German. As someone who speaks two languages, what do you feel about getting heat from refusing to speak English? I'm curious to hear your point of view on that.
Well, honestly, it's just a gimmick to get the crowd going. And I feel that there's actually tension right now because we got this whole thing with Rusev, and we have Swagger representing their own countries, which that leads into Cesaro getting into that little salad, as you may, if you would, about the whole race thing going. I know you pointed out with Rusev about the whole Apollo Creed thing, the last episode that we had.
It was spot on. I haven't seen it.
I see it, and it's going, and right now it looks like Cesaro's actually going to be caught up into that mix, especially with Cesaro feuding with Swagger, because they were teammates at one point. And now that Cesaro's with Heyman, I totally see it happening.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Swagger because that kind of perfectly segues into one of my other points. Swagger, are we? And maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just me reading into it, or maybe this is me watching God knows how much wrestling over the years. Is it just me, or did we possibly see the seeds for a Swagger culture face turn with uh, with Rusev?
I foresee it happening. It's going to be that whole Rocky Four thing as you predicted earlier, the last episode, where everybody's going to be chanting USA, USA, and Swagger's going to be in there, the new Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh man, could you imagine if the whole crowd is chanting USA and Zeb Coulter says, you know, put all real Americans, put your hands over your heart and say we the people.
For real, I can totally see that.
And you know what's funny? As much as I like Jack Swagger, and I think a lot of people shit on him unfairly, yeah, I don't think he's ever been a face. And I think if you're going to play up the anti-American sentiment, he's the guy that you should plug in there as the protagonist to say like, hey, no, motherfucker, we the people, like, you know. And then you could do a face turn for Coulter, and then you could have the Coulter Lana back and forth.
That's definitely pleasable. And then also, speaking on Swagger, I mean, he has excellent in-ring skills. I have yet to see him stiff, and I have yet to see him mess up a spot. It's just the mic skills. I mean, it sounds like Sylvester from Looney Tunes speaking on the mic. We, the people.
And
I'm waiting for him to say suffering succotash.
Well, and I agree with you. He's an incredible athlete. Like, if you watch him and some of the thing he does, you don't realize how big this guy is. But he's huge, and he's physically impressive. He's got a great presence. And then you have Coulter, who's like the perfect mouthpiece, you know, and Coulter's got his signs and all that shtick. But you have Swagger, who I think has pretty much been a career heel, and he's one of those guys that would have done very well in like the 80s, where you just had the 80s and 90s, where you just had all manner of managers. So, I mean, right now he's with Coulter, is great for him. But like if Coulter wasn't there, I think you would agree with me. We really wouldn't give two shits about the character.
And you're absolutely right with that. I mean, again, he has like no mic skills, but his in-ring performance is excellent.
It's personality, right? Because Kofi has the same thing. Kofi's incredibly talented, but he's got no personality, no chutzpah, if you will.
That je ne sais quoi.
Yes, that I love that phrase. 3 years of French, that je ne sais quoi. Can I use your bathroom? Est-ce que je peux aller à la toilette? And one ice cream are the only things that I ever learned. So the fact that you busted that out is really, really funny. We're going to talk about Fandango versus Adam Rose. They had a match on SmackDown. They had another match on Raw. I don't know about you, and maybe this is just I have this this love for bad gimmicks. Would you like to see? I just lost my train of thought here. Fandango and Adam Rose as a tag team. Could you imagine that?
Wow. We got a dancer and a party boy teaming up. I mean, that would be like the perfect tag team right there. Don't be a lemon, be a rosebud. And Fandango. Them together, I mean, I could see for a comedic value where we have the party going, and then all of a sudden you see Fandango in the background getting his groove on with Lana.
Yeah,
Layla?
that would be
Layla, my bad.
Yeah. It's all right.
Which
Nobody
is,
really cares that
she
much about
is fucking hot.
Did you see the bit where she dumped the kitty litter on Summer Rae and in the milk?
That was hilarious.
was
That
too
was
much.
so funny.
Let's see. So we talked about possible face turn for the Real Americans. Then we had rounding out SmackDown. We had Bray Wyatt versus Dean Ambrose in a Money in the Bank qualifying match, which was easily the match of the night. We had a distraction by Rollins, allowing Bray Wyatt to win by Sister Abigail. That SmackDown. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that before we roll into Raw?
No, not really. I mean, that I didn't really catch too much of Raw because the family took me out Friday night, but I did catch that last match where Ambrose was distracted, and then that Sister Abigail is just an awesome finisher. I love it. So overall, I mean, that's the only bits that I got from SmackDown. So when you're ready to move on to Raw, I'm ready.
Yeah, and you know what? You're not wrong about Sister Abigail. That is, I've seen him do that move where someone like jumps at him and then he catches him and does it. When he does it right, it looks like he just kills the guy, just absolutely murders them. So Monday Night Raw starts out with all the superstars on the ramp, with the exception of a few members of the Shield. Uh, we have some arrangements here: a battle royal for the last spot for one of the last two spots in the match at the pay-per-view, and then Ambrose gets Ambrose already, no, he lost his qualifying match. Roman Reigns doesn't get one. What do we think about the idea of having, even though it hasn't happened yet as far as we haven't gotten to the main event, but let's just jump right to it. Kane and Cena. Does this mean that we're going to thankfully lose the Kane-Daniel Bryan feud when he returns?
Well, I believe that the feud's going to go on because regardless of what is happening with Raw at this point, Daniel Bryan has not made a return as of yet. And then with him, he's going to want to start that stairway back to the titles. And they're going to throw Kane in his face regardless of the pay-per-view or not. So the whole situation with Kane and Daniel Bryan, the feud, I'm predicting the feud is going to continue. And that's all due to the powers that be. Triple H and his wife, Cunt McMahon.
The Authority.
Authority.
So following up on that then, the Cena versus Kane stretcher match, which, by the way, I hate stretcher matches. Have you ever seen a good stretcher match in your opinion? Let's start with that.
No, not really. I mean, going back to the Attitude Era, there was not any really good stretcher matches. I mean, it was just, I would say, put together as a combination of matches like Buried Alive match, Steel Cage match, just something to throw into the mix of different types of matches that can be. But I have yet to see a good stretcher match.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a lot of gimmick matches. I mean, you can have the whatever on the pole match. There was one that I really, really dug, except for one part, the TNA King of the Mountain match.
Okay.
It's like this. It's a ladder match, but there's a cage. The last time I saw this was back in like 08-ish. There was like a cell, like a one-person cell on the side of the ring, and then there was a hook for the belt. And what you had to do is you had to either score a pinfall, and there's like 4 or 5 guys in the ring. You have to score a pinfall, and the guy you score the pinfall on goes into this like penalty box, and then once you have scored a pinfall, you can take the belt and put it. Doesn't This is the only part that doesn't make sense. It's like if you get a pinfall, you qualify to win, but then the ass backwards part of it is you have to grab the title and put it on the hook as opposed to take it off. And it was just a really weird thing. But I like gimmick matches. I like the idea, but stretcher matches are just terrible. I think we can agree about that, generally.
Yes, we definitely agree about that. But I'm going to throw a question at you right now.
Do it.
What is your favorite gimmick match of all time?
War Games. No question. War Games.
War Games where the rings were tied together?
Fuck yes. I have the DVD. I'm such a mark for war games. Aside from war games, oh man, it's war games, and then every match leading up to the actual war games event, where you had the lucha undercard and WCW would do the bit from ring to ring. It's war games. I mean, without a doubt. Maybe. I mean, a really. Yeah, no, war games. I just can't. War games is the match.
Okay,
What
so
about for you?
for me, my favorite gimmick match is the gauntlet match. That separates the
Okay.
boys from the men. I mean, the best gauntlet match I saw was with The Rock. The Rock centered the ring. He took out 5 guys, one right after another, and he won the gauntlet match. And it was just awesome to see him go to work like that.
Now we're talking gauntlet match where it's 1-on-1 and the one guy's eliminated, then another guy comes out and then it's another 1-on-1, right? Like not all of them are already out there.
That's correct.
See, I like your pick, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to war games for a second. What I always liked about war games up until the last one or two is that it had a formula, right? And it wasn't really so much about the spots in the match. So the match would start. You have two teams of they had teams of 4 and teams of 5. Coin toss. The heels always won the coin toss, so they always got the advantage going in. And then it's kind of a shitty match if you think about it because the match doesn't really start until everybody's in the ring, and then you can win by submission or yeah, they have to give up. I don't think you can have a pinfall victory in war games. So like once everybody's in there, because it's every 2 to 5 minute intervals, and then at different points those times change where people can come into the ring, but they don't last too long after everybody's in. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give it up to war games. Although you the gauntlet match is pretty cool, um, but we're just gonna have a difference of opinion there. No feuding, no
Yeah.
feuding. Can
Well,
we
for our viewers now, go ahead and post your favorite gimmick match, and we'll go ahead and take a look at them, and we'll go ahead and discuss whichever one got the highest postings, and we'll discuss that next week.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Reinforcing that, people. Comment. Tell us. So we had the Seth Rollins versus Dolph Ziggler. What do you think about Seth Rollins' new ring music?
Well, again, I've been saying since we started this that they were going to go ahead and go singles. His ring music, it's all right. I mean, not enough to get the crowd pumping, but he's coming out and he's doing his thing. I mean, that match with Dolph Ziggler was excellent. I mean, they went back and forth, and it didn't look sloppy, no stiffs. But then here comes Ambrose.
Yeah, and you know it's funny too. They
Your
really got me.
thoughts?
They really got me in that match. I thought for a moment that Ziggler was going to win, just because the match was so good. And you wanted my thoughts on the run-in, right? Where we had what was it, Ambrose interferes? Yeah, man, I really dug that. And the fact that he was in street clothes and then he just comes in by himself, he gets new music, very very cool. Um, we've said it before and we'll say it again. I mean, like every member of the Shield is, in my opinion, a star, right? Nobody. It's not that nobody knows it yet. It's just like it hasn't been reaffirmed. And I gotta say, a Rollins Ambrose feud is so exciting a possibility for me because we don't really see that with Reigns right now, and it's just Ambrose is the one that's kind of taken a little far. So I'd love to see the two of them continue to go at it. I love all of that. And then we had a follow-up match with Bad News Barrett. Triple H came out and said, you know, hey, we're going to have this other match for you. Quick question. Do you think it's too much to not have scheduled matches where everything is just insane on the fly? Do you think it should be more specific, this match, and like a couple of those? or do you think it's good being that chaos where matches just randomly happen all the time?
Well, we got to have structure, period. But again, matches on the fly are always a plus, especially when people are feuding. Like with the thing with Ambrose and Rollins. I mean, if they were to just interfere with each other's matches, they're going to go at it. They should just let it go. I mean, these two want to fight, let them fight, and then the crowd will just go ballistic.
And that's a main event feud. I mean, do you share my thoughts on that? I mean, that could, just like how the Shield could main event 2 pay-per-views and nobody had a problem with it. We all saw that as the main event. I could see that feud being a main event feud. Your thoughts?
Definitely a main event feud, especially with them being brothers. Broken brother feud. That is excellent. That is like perfect. That would be a perfect pay-per-view. Broken brothers.
I'm in. Take my money. I'm sold.
Here's a check. Write however much you want me to pay for this.
Done. Seriously. But you know what? And it's funny too because it's getting so good right now. Like, I go back and watch some of the older stuff, some of the stuff from the 80s, the 90s, and it's funny how there's always been this common thread where you'll have guys that are just solid workers, but they're not always the main eventers. Now we're kind of evolving to this point where if you're not a good worker, you got to get the fuck out. And everybody's a good worker, and it's just like we're at a point now. Do you feel like we're seeing the best that we've ever seen as far as everybody being able to compete at such high levels all at the same time?
Well, actually, not necessarily, but it is getting better as it's proceeding. I mean, because we did, within the last 2 or 3 years, we did have a couple stagnant points with our wrestling, but now, I mean, it's starting to pick up again. It's starting to come back into the light. I mean, the feuds are becoming more intense. The impromptu matches are better than they've been in a long time. And I'm actually excited to see what else we have to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good times to be a wrestling fan. Really good times because a lot of the in-ring work is really, really good, where you only have a few guys that can't really go out there and have just a knockdown, drag out, like Khali. Which, by the way, please get rid of Khali. Please, 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 please get rid of Khali. Do you like the Punjabi butt fucker? I don't know. Your thoughts on Khali?
The Punjabi playboy. Situation with him, he's just big. I mean, he is so horrible in the ring. Dude, I mean, he can barely speak English, and then when they give him the mic, he's not even speaking English. I think he's just in there for his size and his comedic value. I mean, I loved him when he was with Hornswoggle and that little band of misfits. But other than that, I mean, he is a horrible in performer. Period.
He is
I mean, it looks like a giant broom just fell on somebody.
Yeah, and you know, it's
I mean,
funny you mentioned you mentioned his poor English. You go back and watch that movie, The Longest Yard, the Adam Sandler movie, and he's in it. He speaks English. They still fucking give him subtitles.
Sorry.
So, rocking and rolling right along here, we're talking about Roman Reigns. We're talking about the Shield. Do you like the fact that right now, I mean, Ambrose is obviously in street clothes, how they're not just immediately changing ring gear? I mean, Rollins is still kind of wearing that Shield gear. Reigns is still wearing the Shield gear, but now with like the green undershirt that he wore a while back. What are your thoughts about how they're still kind of staying with the whole presentation?
Well, they're going to have to stay in character for just a bit longer, just enough to segue them into their own singles matches. So they can go ahead and make their run for the belt. So they can go ahead and do their singles competition. So slowly but surely, they're going to go ahead and come into their own. So it's not like a drastic change, but a soft and subtle change. Because pretty soon we'll go ahead and see Reigns in his own gear, then we'll see Ambrose in his own gear, and then we already see Rollins in his own gear.
That's true. That's true. And speaking of Reigns for a second, we had an interesting backstage segment, and this is going to tie in with something that you wanted to talk about: Vicky Guerrero and Roman Reigns. Your thoughts?
Well, that whole bit was awesome. I loved it, especially how Reigns he gave homage to the late Eddie Guerrero. Rest in peace, Papa. So he Eddie Guerrero, actually the Guerrero family is an awesome wrestling family. And then to have Vicky come in and be acknowledged for being part of that family was actually like a breath of fresh air. I mean, she's the one that you love to hate. She gets a pop from the crowd anytime she goes out. But to be acknowledged as part of that family, Reigns is showing homage to a great wrestling family.
True, true. All the Guerreros are very cool, and it's funny. There's a lot of Guerreros in places I never realized. Like I think one of is it Hector? Doesn't one of them do Spanish announce for TNA?
I believe it was Hector. I'm not sure if he's still doing it right now. And I know Chavo is in TNA right now, if they haven't released him yet or not. But
Chavo's still at TNA?
Chavo, I believe, is still in TNA.
Nice. I'm a big fan of Chavo.
I mean, again, that whole family is well in the wrestling community, and they're an awesome wrestling family. Always a pleasure to watch them in the ring, and my shout out to the Guerrero family. I respect them, and I love the Guerrero family. Keep doing what you're doing.
Definitely, and I have a soft spot in my heart for the Guerrero family in a different way. I just recently found out. Do you remember the gobbledygooker? The fucking turkey that hatched at one of the Survivor Series, like back in, let's say, 93, 92, maybe? If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But he was this big friggin' turkey, and it was Hector in a turkey suit, and he wrestled. And just finding out recently that was Hector Guerrero's made my day. They're awesome. Rolling right along, though, quick question. Talking about Vicky and Roman, what would you think about a Vicky and Roman love couple pairing?
No.
Yes.
Please,
yes.
No. Please, no. I mean.
Hey, man. Hey. She's a cougar. Makes perfect sense.
No, Cougar. Shout outs to all the Cougars out there, including you, Vicky Guerrero. Go ahead, do your thing. But not with Reigns, please.
All right. So we had a backstage segment where he's kind of trying to sweeten her up. She's got coffee. He's like, hey, you better make sure they got enough sweetener. She's like, oh, I totally forgot about sweetener. He put something in there. Was it Visine? I don't know what it was. But then when they brought it to Stephanie McMahon, she's puking her everything up. And then, what was it? She throws up all over Vicky, and then Vicky's given charge of the rest of the night. Roman coming in, swooping in again with that sweet talk, that sweet Roman Reigns pillow talk to Vicky Guerrero. He gets himself put into the Battle Royal. Really interesting stuff, considering how it kind of plays on the idea that he's telling her that you can kind of redeem yourself here. Could we ever see a face Vicky Guerrero?
I can see it happening. But again, Vicky's the type of person that you love to hate. And she always gets a pop from the crowd with her, "Excuse me!" So I don't see a face turn, but I see her coming into herself as an anti-hero. Your thoughts?
I can see that. Kind of like a renegade cog in the machine, right? Like she's a part of the machine and she holds power, but it's like for her own interest that can line up with some of the baby faces. I think that would be really cool. And I like Vicky. She's probably the sweetest woman in the world, but I stand by my thoughts that she, aside from people like The Undertaker, she is one of the most successful homegrown characters of the WWE. Just because, like you said, her reaction is you can't get that for anybody else. I mean, you can. It's like the Vicky Guerrero pop. It's like the inverse or the reverse of the Road Warrior pop, where the Road Warriors come out, everybody loses their goddamn mind. Vicky has the Vicky Guerrero pop, where she comes out and fucking we want to burn her alive.
Definitely. Touche on that.
That also, no, yeah, that's it for me. Rolling right along though, I have one word for you: Stardust.
Stardust. I mean, they started off the segment with Cody going up to Goldust and like, I got the perfect partner for you. He shines like the stars. And I couldn't put it together. And I'm like, who shines like the stars? All of a sudden, you hear Goldust music and Goldust comes out. And all of a sudden, Stardust comes out. Cody Rhodes in the face paint with the black star gold face paint with a sinister smile, and they go out to that ring and they wreck house. It was totally out of Cody's style, and they won.
And more specifically, he got the winning fall. Not just that he won, he won.
Exactly. And then let me tell you, it was like a Goldust-ish style in which he portrayed, which that came out to be effective, and he got the pin.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? I've always thought Cody Rhodes was incredible, but a lot of people have said this is that Cody Rhodes gives off this aura that he's just a guy, right? Like, hey, oh yeah, I'm the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and the bizarre one, he's his brother. But at the end of the day, like nothing about Cody specifically made him stand out, even when he was doing what was it, Legacy and all that. But then you get to see him portray these characters with like the evil Cody Rhodes putting bags over people's heads, the dashing Cody Rhodes. I've thought he's been amazing, but for him to play another character that is just it fits. It makes the fact that he's doing it as a team with Goldust makes perfect sense, and it's nice because now we're going to have a new version of Cody Rhodes, but also kind of like a Goldust 2.0, and it's funny because I'm curious how he's going to play it because we had the origin of Goldust. He's this very like I know they use the word like androgynous, and there's like a lot of homoeroticism there that took a lot of years to kind of pass. But then you have the Goldust we have now, and it's interesting because I don't know what Cody's going to do as Stardust, but whatever it is, I'm totally behind it. Maybe not so much the music. Maybe it'll take a while for me to get into the music, but just the idea that he's like this Goldust 2.0, super exciting for me. And I did say I didn't say it was going to happen. I said I wanted it to happen. So yeah, it was great, absolutely great, and it was a squash match. Like I don't even know, a minute, two? No, it had to be like what, 3 minutes, give or take.
Roughly about 3 minutes.
Super short, Divas match length. So then, well, before we go any further, we're going to go right on into this battle royal. Anything else you wanted to say about that with Stardust and all that jazz?
It's a fresh start for Cody. Let him do his thing. Let's go ahead and see a couple matches, feel him out, because he definitely's got a Goldust style to his movement. And I'm actually looking forward to see what happens with Goldust and Stardust make a run for those title shots.
And you know what? Something occurred to me. So here's a thought, right? Hopefully, and I think you're in agreement with me that this should, we don't know if it will, but should lead into a feud between the two of them. What would you say if you had a feud between the two of them and Goldust is able to pull Cody Rhodes out, and then instead of Stardust, you have Cody Rhodes, and then hopefully, I don't know about your thoughts, if Cody is able to bring out Dustin Rhodes, and then actual Rhodes versus Rhodes, and kind of finally shed the dusts, and maybe come back to them later, but just as an idea, a Rhodes as a Rhodes instead of Rhodes versus Goldust.
See, that actually is pay-per-view material right there.
Totally.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean,
like
that would
that.
be an awesome feud between them. I would love to see them where they actually just take the face paint off and just go at it. A brotherly feud. Broken Brothers, the next pay-per-view again.
Totally. And then we can have the special guest referee, the American Dream, Dusty.
Put the pressure on them, Daddy. Drop the elbow, baby. Drop it like a toilet seat.
The son of a plumber. Hard times. Yeah, I love me some Dusty Rhodes. People's comment, like, tell us how much you like Dusty. Tell us how much you like the whole Rhodes clan. Tell us everything. So we're going to get into this Battle Royal.
Do it.
Do it. So moving on into this Battle Royal, we got, and I'm just going to run through this list, Bo Dallas, Ryback, Curtis Axel, Santino Marella, Rusev, Wade Barrett, Kofi Kingston, Sin Hunico, Sin Cara, Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, Titus O'Neil, Damian Sandow, Xavier Woods, Rob Van Dam, Fandango, Matadors, Big E, Roman Reigns. Question: what do we think about Sandow, LeBron James?
That was hilarious. I mean, I love the heat, and for him to come out there, it was like a slap in the face, but it was awesome, though. But I mean, he got eliminated real quick.
Like everybody ganged up on him, right? Like he was the first guy out. It was hilarious. And speaking of that too, just as a side note, because we talked about this last week, I love Damian Sandow, and I know you weren't fond of the unitard Damian Sandow. I think they should just change his ring gear every week, just something ridiculous every week, and like that's his thing. And then eventually, I don't know. I don't want to think that they're being unfavorable towards him because he's still getting a lot of TV time. But it kind of makes you wonder, did he piss somebody off, or is this just him trying to have fun, you know?
I think it's more a line of him having fun. I mean, he's playing to the popularity, such as the NBA championship matches. Heat lost. He put on the Heat jersey, got eliminated. Him teaming up with Fandango, putting on a leotard. So I believe he's just playing to the popularity at that time and point, just so he can get that TV time he's needing.
So can you and I be in agreement here? I'm a big Damian Sandow fan. Are you a big Damian Sandow fan?
Not really big, but he's starting to grow on me now. He put on that Heat jersey, and I was like, yeah! He got eliminated. I was like, no!
You're welcome.
But he's a decent heel, awesome mic skills, decent in-ring skills. So he's playing to the people's popularities and fads at that time. So let's see how he proceeds on further on later on during the time he has on TV, and hopefully he'll go ahead and grow on me just a little bit more.
Not to mention too, he's an interesting character, but he's the type of guy you can plug into a tag team, because you know WWE loves to do that. Take two guys that really aren't a tag team inherently and then make them a tag team. He's like a perfect addition, you know. And him and Cody Rhodes getting that, I guess it's like best friends heat. Like people will watch and be like, I don't know, these guys are friends and I don't like that, you know. But it was awesome. I love it. So we got all these people in the match. We're talking about racist Rusev. Did you notice that Rusev only eliminated minorities such as Los Matadors and Xavier Woods?
I did see that. I did notice, and I did pick up on that before you mentioned it. So I was like, this is totally Mikey's Rocky IV connection to this. So I'm like, yo, why is he just taking out just the minorities? And as I stated earlier, I do see a Swagger Rusev clash coming.
Oh, it would be super fun. It would be super fun because then you could have Lana come out and talk about how great Putin is, and then you could have an interruption by Zeb Coulter. She's not a real American. Get out of here. It would be a lot of fun. So I don't know about you. I'm not really a big fan of battle royals. I really didn't care too much about this until we got to the last few minutes, and it's Raymond's. Jeez. Reigns and Rusev. What'd you think about it coming down to them and how that all played out?
Well, when they faced off on each other, I mean, you saw the tenacity there. You saw the raw intensity, and that would build up to an awesome match. That is pay-per-view status right there. And then when they clashed, it was awesome. I was digging it, and I wanted to see, and I want to see more. I definitely
Yeah,
want to see more, especially from Reigns.
yeah, totally. Ooh, wow, whatever the. By the way, this is something we never talked about. This has to be mentioned. Is it just me and I'm neurotic, or am I the only one that got pissed off watching the Shield um, do a triple power bomb when it's quite clearly not a triple power bomb? It's a two-man assist power bomb. Your thoughts?
Well, yes, you are neurotic, but the situation with the Triple Man powerbomb, it's just a powerbomb with a two-man assist. I totally agree on that. And honestly, it was kind of lame, but with Reigns behind that powerbomb, it is definitely effective.
Yeah, it's totally cool. Um, so kind of moving on from that, we get to the end of the match. It's down to the two of them. I I agree with you. I think that's a really man, just something to look forward to. So then we go from the good to the really bad. We got John Cena versus Kane, which I am so over Kane. We talked about how awful stretcher matches are. Is it not the most difficult match to have because you've got to get the guy onto the stretcher, but you can't make it look like you're carrying dead weight. Excuse me, because most of the guys can't lift them up. But then the other guy adjusts on the stretcher, and then they have to roll the stretcher up the ramp. I mean, isn't that kind of stupid? Like instead of maybe you should just put the guy on the stretcher and then like, yay, he's on the stretcher, match over. As opposed to like, no, we have to cross the finish line. Which the stretcher? I hate it. I don't know about you.
Wait, wait, wait. Please wait. That
Wait.
match was horrible. Just horrible. They're both their in-ring performances were horrible. And then the stretcher match itself is horrible. Keyword today, kids, horrible. And I mean, honestly, to get somebody on the stretcher and roll them up, I mean, that is so lame. I mean, somebody could sneeze and fall off the stretcher.
Right?
Unless they're strapping them down. I mean, you can just like a wicked sneeze and you'll fall right off.
You know what? I wouldn't mind it. I actually, if they had to strap them in, I think I'd be okay with that. But yeah, barring strapping you in, that is just awful. It's bad. Do you think, and this is just an interesting perspective, do you think they were giving away a pay-per-view level match for free on television? Just like kind of the throwaway, like that should have been reserved for a kind of bigger event as opposed to just a random Monday Night Raw?
Well, first off, the stretcher match sucks. But then for them to be a pay-per-view match with a stretcher, I mean that's totally out of the question. And I believe Vince McMahon would agree with me saying that that match was awful, just awful. But to have them both in the ring, Kane and Cena, in a regular match, I would have just preferred just a regular 3 count pinfall anywhere match rather than a stretcher match any day. and then to have Cena finish it off with his finisher, that was an attitude adjustment, onto the stretcher and pushed not even a foot to cross the line was lame.
Which out of all the terrible looking attitude adjustments, which by the way, F you. I hate calling an attitude adjustment. I hate it. I miss the FU, the STFU. Get rid of this attitude adjustment crap. I hate it. It's hey, Michael Cole. Oh look, Michael, he hit him with the hey, Cena with the hey. Stupid. It's fucking horrible. It's horrible. It's awful. I don't mind the move, but please, when you have someone screaming AA on television, I'm thinking other things. I'm not thinking of a wrestling finisher. And yeah, that match was the weakest. It was the weakest one ever. It was terrible. Really kind of disappointing. Really disappointing main event. I mean, just if that's your main event, it almost feels like we promised these people. And in fact, I think they said it. We promised these people a match. And, we don't want to go back on our word, which is kind of terrible because my hope. I hate this new Kane. I hate it. So my hope was, okay, we'll get that match out of the way and free Daniel Bryan from the shackles of a Kane feud. Because I would love to see them have a feud, but the way they've been doing it is so awful. I'd much rather see a feud where they play on their past and maybe like a double turn. Maybe Kane turns face and Daniel Bryan turns heel again. Because I love heel Daniel Bryan, but I just can't stand the Demon Kane.
No. The Demon Kane right now, I mean, they need to play to his strengths, and as of right now, it's not the same. It is definitely not the same Kane from back in the Attitude Era at all. So, what I'm thinking is with the Cena and the Kane match, which I have no idea why they would finish Raw with that being the main event. The Battle Royal was better than the main event.
Hey, I don't want to argue with you, but you don't think that's best for business?
No. That main event was not best for business, hands down.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the stretcher match is an awful gimmick match. Of all the bad gimmick matches we could have, because again, I mean, of all the, and on top of gimmick match, not only comment peoples on your favorite gimmick matches, but talk about ones that you want us to talk about. And hey, talk about a new concept, maybe one that hasn't been done before, or maybe one that's done in another promotion. Because I'm a big fan of gimmick matches, like when they're done right, like a Buried Alive match, or a casket match, or
hardcore match.
And it's funny because I really wish they would bring back the hardcore title back when it was like a 24-hour deal thing. That would be so much fun. Cut Raw down to 2 hours every week. Bring back the hardcore title. Get some minis in there. You know what? Did you ever watch like older NWA like in the 80s? Late 80s, maybe early 90s?
Scaffold match?
Oh my God, no. It's funny that you mentioned the scaffold match because I wasn't even thinking about that. I just watched the both of them from Jim Crockett Promotions in the 80s on the network, which, by the way, people, get the WWE Network. It's $10 a month. Yes, you have to commit for 6 months, but if you really think about it, it's all the wrestling you could ever watch, and they're uploading new content every day. Legends House, all this stuff. Yes, each week's Raw and SmackDown are not on the network, which makes me sad, and that's a little tear. But I imagine that's to come, but it's totally worth it. All the pay-per-views, anything. They just loaded all the Clash of Champions, which I've been going back and watching. But getting back to my point with the NWA, they would have matches where people would always interfere like a manager or an escort, and they would stick him in a cage and hang him from a crane like 20 feet in the air, so you know you're going to get the babyface payoff. You know they're not going to interfere. Question: what do you think about the possibility of having someone feud with Bray Wyatt and then putting the two other Wyatt members suspended in the air in a cage, so that way to the fans you know they're not going to have some bullshit, schmershy escape stuff?
I like it. I like it a lot. Well, and I'm gonna double that for you. Say we have the Wyatts, Bret Wyatt and Cena go at it, and then we have the Usos in another cage right next to the other Wyatts.
You know what I think about that idea? I think this. I think it's a great idea. Sold. Totally. Uh, Before we go, um, now we have the full lineup for the Money in the Bank match. We got Del Rio, Orton, Sheamus, Cesaro, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, John Cena. We're not going to get into predictions because I think we can do that next week and just kind of run down the card and talk about who we think is going to do what. But if you ran the show, if you knew what was best for business, who would win that match?
That's really good, and that's something that we would actually have to think about. And as of right now, that's going to lead into our predictions. So I'm not going to give out who I think just yet. I'm going to go ahead and let that simmer with all our listeners and viewers, and I'm hoping you do the same. So let's. I'm going to hold off my answer on that until our predictions, because I mean right now that's going to be a heavy card right there. That's going to be a really heavy card, and I want to put into a lot of thought into that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But I'm just going to go on record. Please, 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 no Cena wins with the title unless we're going to build to a rematch at SummerSlam where Bryan knees him in the friggin' face again. Is there anything you want to touch on before we let these people go back to their regular lives and stop ignoring their families and watching our videos?
Well, I'm going to be in agreement with you. Please, no John Cena for that match. I mean, honestly, looking at the list, I pretty much have who I want, and I pretty much have who I don't want, and Cena is definitely the top of the do not want. So, next week we'll go into the predictions. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, man, that's fair. I'm in completely agreement with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us here. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us how much you like us. Tell us what you think of the show. Tell us your thoughts, any questions you may have, things you want us to bring up, anything like that. My name is Ted, along with my partner,
Papo!
Everybody, good night.
Good night.